Hey, okay, so I'm going to do the next part here about where you're interpreting for Mr. Franklin, translating, whatever. I don't know how long this one will take because it's a little more complicated, so I'm going to try to get as much done as I can without making the video too long and overwhelming. So this part will be a little tricky, but we'll just take practice and you'll be fine. So the part where Franklin says, not to be too terribly metaphoric, Mr. Leeds, but that's a long distance. You're asking Sarah to step away from the community of the deaf. So she says what he's saying, and then my understanding, let me know if I forget or skip any lines in here that you feel should have been signed that I didn't, but just based on my interpretation of how this scene goes, we can always add to it later. So you signed to Sarah, he's not saying anything important. So point to Mr. Franklin, he's not saying anything important. I think we've done important before. 2 F's goes down, makes a circle, and up. Important. He's not saying anything important. You can't decide what I hear and don't hear. Franklin says, she's right, Mr. Leeds. You can't decide what she hears and doesn't hear. Sarah says, you can't edit the conversation. And I think this is where you would sign back to her. I was not editing. So the sign for edit, you take an O, scrunch it, and you push them back and forth. Like you're barely touching your fingernails, like to fix, to tinker, to edit, to adjust. All of those things. So edit the conversation. 2 C's. One goes this way, one goes this way. Conversation. So I was not editing the conversation. Pardon, Mr. Leeds, but it seems you didn't like the implications I was making, so you chose not to tell Sarah. She says, now what? So back to Sarah. He should be signing. So you could do it this way or this way. Palms out like this. And you circle, or just small. I think it would probably be bigger because you're angry, but it's up to you. He should be signing. And then you say to Mr. Franklin, Mr. Franklin, or whatever we decide for him, would you mind? So would you mind is don't mind. You take it in the middle of your nose and you slide it forward. Don't mind. So would you mind? He interrupts you. Why don't you sign my part of the conversation for me? And then you say, why don't you sign your own conversation? So the word own is another lexicalized sign, which unfortunately for you is not easy and fun, but it's O-W-N, but it's signed fast-ish and turned. So it starts with an O this way. I'm going to show you what it looks like. That's what it looks like done quickly. So it's O this way, W to the side, N in the front. So O-W-N, but it's turned O-W-N kind of quickly like that. So if that's too difficult or you're feeling it's slowing down that part of the conversation, you can just skip the word own, but I feel like as a character, you might emphasize it, like you sign your own conversation. So ideally, it would be great if you could get that word in there, but if not, it's okay. So why don't you sign your own conversation? And if you can't do own right there, just emphasize the your. So why don't you sign your conversation? And you could just say the word own but not do it. So why don't you sign your own conversation? If we can't get that own lexical, it's kind of a wavy, flowy sign. So just practice it, but if not, don't stress over it. Franklin says, I've got to finish what I'm doing here. It'll give me a little practice. Practice at what? So this part I think you're sim-comming because you're trying to include Sarah in the conversation. So practice, time for practice. Your dominant hand moves back and forth. Practice at what? We don't need to sign at, just practice what? Sarah says, what is he saying? Franklin, who is not signing, and forcing James to sign it. So this part will be just a give and take between you and Arthur whenever we get in the flow of this, but you'll start to interpret what he's saying kind of annoyingly. So I'm saying, I think James, we'll just sign Leeds, James should get a taste. You're not actually tasting anything with your mouth. So we're going to sign experience. So should get a taste, experience. Just brush down on your cheek. Get a taste of being a translator. So translator, you take the T. It's like the sign change, which I think we've done before, change. But you're going to do it with 2 T's, and they're going to slide into L's. Technically, it's called interpreting, but back then they called it translating. So it's kind of different. Little historical tidbit there. So T's to slide open to L's. Translate. So translator, the person at the end of it, as that's one of the problems he's facing. Let me see. So what I'm saying is James should get a taste of being a translator, as that's, we've done that. That's one of the problems. Problem is a scrunched V, and you're brushing them back and forth. Problems facing him each and every time I wouldn't sign facing him. Just that's one of the problems. Each, sign for each and every. Actually, each and every are kind of the same, so you can just do each and every time. Just do it one time. Time. You can go ahead and sign time here. It's not accurate, but it'll work. Time. The two of you venture out. We're just going to sign out. Go out. I think we've done that one before. Go out into the hearing world. World is W's circled to make a globe. So all that together is, I have to scroll on my page, sorry. I'm not saying I think James should get a taste. No, I am saying, sorry, put that backwards. I'm saying I think James should get a taste of being a translator, as that's one of the problems facing him each and every time the two of you venture out into the hearing world. And then Sarah says, one of our problems, what are the rest? Aren't you going to tell us the rest? Franklin says, sorry, Jimbo, what did she say? Oh, for Christ. So just throw your hands up again, like, oh, or even just like sigh. You don't have to sign oh. Oh, for Christ, and start to sign Christ, but for Christ, and stop. She wants to know if you aren't going to forewarn. The warn is like you're slapping a kid on the wrist, like, don't touch that. Aren't going to forewarn the two of us, of the rest of our problems. I would just sign more. The rest of our problems as well being also same. So that, oh, for Christ, she wants to know if you aren't going to forewarn us of the rest of our problems as well. And then again, she's going to force you to translate this part. So he says, I suspect neither of you wants to hear that. I suspect, think of like a private eye where you're like, I'm kind of getting curious about that. So I suspect neither of you, the two of y'all again, neither of you wants to hear that. Here technically is not accurate, but it might be kind of ironic if we sign it there, to hear that. Well, I'm sure you've both given this a great deal of thought. So we're not going to sign given great deal. We're just going to sign think a lot. So I'm sure that you've both given this a great deal of thought. We're going to just sign think a lot. I've got to run. I've got to run. So run, this is time for like get out of here. So I'm here and then I'm gone. I've got to run. Thank you for informing me, for telling me about, I think we've signed that one before, scrunched O, about your plans. So plans is like, it can be like choppy or it can be like smooth. It just means like we're gonna do this, and then this. That's our plan. So about your plans. I hope, you can sign hope with fingers crossed, or you can sign this hope. Think, and then it kind of bounces down like this. Depends on which you choose. I hope you will invite. So invite is kind of like the sign for welcome, but it's like extended away. So it's like, here, I'm inviting you. I'm bringing you in. Invite me to the wedding. So wedding, think of like the bride's hand and the groom's hand. Their hands are right here and they're joined together. Wedding. So all that to say, let's see if I can remember exactly what I told you. I suspect neither of you wants to hear that. Well, I'm sure you've both given this a great deal of thought. I've got to run. Thank you for telling me about your plans. I hope you'll invite me to the wedding. We can go ahead and sign to there. I didn't tell you that before, but to the wedding. Okay, by the time he finishes that, Franklin is gone. And she says, he's right, you'll be a translator, You sign, the trick is to do a better job than I just did. So the trick, we're going to sign goal, like, because it's not really like a trick, like, haha, fooled you. So the goal, the trick is to do a better job than, take your hand and slap it down, than I just did. So just is take an X, point it backwards to your ear, and you just tap just. It also means recently, like what just happened. What I just did. So that all together is, the trick is to do a better job than I just did. And did, remember the C's, do, it's an action. It just starts here and it circles out and goes forward. Don't hate me for not learning to speak. Don't hate you for not learning to speak. You say, no, I'll love you for having the strength to be yourself. So you could sign B here, but be careful because it looks like bitch if you did this way. I think I would just leave out the B, and I would just sign for having the strength to be, and just point to her and sign yourself or yourself this way. So no, I love you for having the strength to be yourself. And you could even just like, this is who you are, be yourself. That's the end of the scene. Okay, it wasn't too long, just over 10 minutes. So hopefully that gives you a little bit more to practice. Let me know if you have questions. Bye.